Hey guys, welcome to episode 17 of Forests and Freedom. Carly, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Timmy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm still a little bit pumped from watching you getting scuffles on Wednesday, and
I'm sore.
I have your spoon here, but I haven't got it engraved yet, so you'll get it back eventually.
Okay, it's good to know.
So guys, welcome to the podcast. We're going to talk more on another episode about Wednesday and what happened there in Melbourne on the 30th. But this one, we're going to bring in a special guest to talk to us. We've been working with this party through the ARU to, organise policies and stuff together, the wording of policies. We're keeping an eye out on the fight. So sometimes in the ARU, we might be aware of something coming up. We can make this party aware and this individual's office, and vice versa. Sometimes they'll see things coming down the line. So we're as the ARU, we're starting to form these relationships where we can actually really help each other out. And so part of that is we wanted to get a guest on from that party, which is the Libertarian Party. And just for the record, we are happy to work with other parties as well, but the Libertarians have been working very closely with us already. So our special guest today is David Limbrick from the Libertarians, and he is the Upper House member for South East Metro in Victoria. So, David, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, mate.
Hi, David.
G'day. How's it going, Carly?
Good, thank you.
Is your foot getting better?
If you guys...
It's slowly getting better. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't come across David before, you really should have. But, you know, in this movement, we've been meeting a lot of new faces and a lot of people new to politics. So David and the Libertarians have had 2 rallies against the Great Forest National Park, both of which David spoke at. David has been helping us in the fight in the sewers of Parliament. I'm sure David agrees that that's what it feels like a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Snake pit.
So while we get to be out here and complain about the politicians, David's in there neck deep in sewage, dealing with it all. So thank you, David, for all you've done so far and for being on with us today.
No, thanks for what you guys are doing. It's it's important that groups get together and organise things like this. So I think it's fantastic that what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you. So as the podcast goes, we've got a few questions we're going to talk to David about, and then we're just going to have a discussion and get to know a little bit about David and what got him into politics and all of that. So stay on board, and hopefully we're nice and engaging. I know David's always fun to talk to. So, David, I think we'll just start off. So there's a petition on Wednesday, and Carly and I weren't aware until your staff invited us in the office for a coffee with you. And this petition was about now I'm going to stuff up the words, the alert.
I'll try to say it for you. Said it.
I did? Okay. And the Wombat state forest that they want to turn into the national park. And both Carly and I missed your speech on that. But how do you think the petition went?
Yeah, well, for those that aren't aware, anyone in Victoria can set up a petition that will go into Parliament. And if it gets over 10,000 signatures for an online petition, or I think it's 2,000 for an old school written petition, then it can qualify for debate in Parliament. And this is a fairly new thing. It's only started in 2023. And this petition got over 11,000 signatures, which is amazing. So obviously it qualified for debate. And that happened on Wednesday. So, yeah, what happens is there's a half an hour slot and each MP gets about 5 minutes to speak on it. Lots of people wanted to speak, and I actually thought that I might not get a chance to speak. So I was right near the end, but I did in the end. I managed to get a couple of minutes in. But look, I think it's good to show the government that actually there are a significant number of people who, have these views on this, that don't want this national park created in around Wombat State Park. And I think it was good to show that there was support for that. And the government the government's responses were actually pretty interesting, because the government seems to have taken a position since we've had the new premier that they don't, they're saying the right things in terms of park access, right? Of course, what they say and what they do is often two different things, but at least they're making the right noises, and they made some of the right noises. I don't know, I'd be interested if you guys read what the Labor MP said, but they certainly weren't very keen on saying that they're locking anything down or shutting down any activities. So, I mean, that's a good start, I suppose, the best you can hope for, really. So that was good. It forced them, like the real power of this is it showed the government that there is significant support for this, or significant opposition in this case, and also forced the government to say something about it. And they did, and they sort of weren't, they were respectful of the petitioners. So I thought that was good.
Yeah. I found it interesting in the response that I read in your office that they're still saying that they're gonna legislate it, but they're not actually giving a date still. So
yeah,
that's
it's probably not high on their priority list at the moment.
Yeah,
they've got other things, like the Vic Grid bill, which is far higher priority for them.
Yeah.
And they probably don't want big fights, but like, this is just one of those things that it'll be on their list. And yeah, look, I mean, we'll judge the legislation when we see it. So we don't know exactly what they're planning, in terms of legislation and what that will involve. But if they want to create a national park, then firstly we will oppose that. But like, we want to make sure that they stick to what they said. They said that they're not going to shut down any activities. So how are we going to make sure that they actually do that? And we'll have to wait and see what the legislation actually looks like, because we can't form a position on something that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
So this is actually a question just popped, sort of, I don't know why I didn't put it on my list of questions earlier.
Sure.
So, I mean, obviously you've been in the fight with us against the Great Forest National Park, and I can't believe we haven't asked you your take on this. So we won that debate, at least for now. But, and Carly and I have spoken about this a little bit, so you don't have to go too deep, but we seem like we might have a problem now with some treaty negotiations. Is that something you wanted to discuss briefly, or?
Yeah, so sure. So, I mean, this is something that is very top of my mind at the moment. For a number of years now, we've had what's called the First Peoples Assembly in Victoria, which is sort of like what they were planning for the federal parliament with the voice. Not many people know that we've basically already got that in Victoria. And the government's been talking about making that permanent, which, Libertarians oppose. But they've also been putting forward all of the machinery to go through these treaty negotiations. Now, lots of people think that treaty is just like, you sign a document, you come to a deal, and then that's it. But actually, treaty is not like that at all. You've got lots of these different traditional owner corporations, and then treaty actually involves lots of negotiations between all these different groups. And where that lands, no one knows. And that's really the problem here, is that where the government's entering into this negotiation process without anyone sort of having any clear understanding of what's actually on the table here. And, we've seen some really bad indications of things that have happened already with some of the, cultural heritage restrictions. One of the ones that I've been talking about a lot has been at rock climbing at Mount Arapiles, and the Grampians has been very heavily restricted. Other ones which you may be familiar with is the Mallee Rally, that was basically killed off by cultural heritage restrictions. And we're concerned that, you're not going to be able to do anything without getting a cultural heritage consultant to come out and do an assessment, which of course costs a lot of money. And on top of that, we're concerned about, well, how much is this going to cost? What does this mean for parks users and parks access? And all of that's a big unknown, which makes, lots of people worried, including myself. So, yeah.
Which is completely induced by the government, because they're doing this all behind closed doors. and they're making it so that, you know, if you're not Indigenous, you're not even allowed to attend these meetings. So it's very secretive and divisive in how they're actually trying to implement this, and that's what I hate about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one for the government. I mean, when you're going into these negotiations, of course, they destroy their negotiating position if they say what's on and off the table. But of course, that means that no one else knows what's on and off the table. And it makes it, you know, a bit of a worry for everyone, because they're like, well, what's the government actually going to trade away here? Like, are they going to be handing over tons of taxpayers' money? Are they going to be restricting parks access? I mean, what are they actually doing here? And no one really knows. And so, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, your fight with the amount of Rapparees is something I'd almost forgotten about. So this is, you know, so much goes on, you forget what people are doing. So I want to give you a bit of a shout out. You went outside of your own group. You fought for these people, even though they've got no opportunity to vote for you. Which kind of leads into my next question, because the amount of effort and fight you put into that says something really important about you, I think, and I'm hoping you can explain it to us.
Yeah, like, all right. So I don't think this is just about like me. I think you know, as long as I'm part of the Libertarian Party, I don't want to see this sort of country-city divide. And I think that there's been a lot of that in the past, where you get this sort of regional politics and city politics. And I just see us all as Victorians, right? And the idea that parks access is a regional issue is just wrong. People from the Southeast Metro use parks and they go rock climbing. I know that. In fact, you may not be aware of this. I've been informed that the electorate, the upper house electorate with the largest number of duck hunters, is actually mine, the Southeast Metro. Like, there's lots of tradies in my area. They like going out the bush, they like going camping, and they like hunting. So, you know, the idea that this is just a regional issue is wrong. And so I think it's important to fight for these things. You know, philosophically, from the Libertarian Party, we see this as if there's a public asset like a park, then the public should have access to it as much as is reasonable. And of course, there's going to be some sorts of restrictions for, you know, safety and things like this. And no one wants, like, if there's Aboriginal artwork or something like that, no one wants that vandalized and destroyed. But what we're concerned about is we don't feel like they've got the balance right at all. And this is the problem, especially in the Rapparees. It's just like they've closed off huge sections of it. And the government acts as if these rock climbers who have this really strong connection to the area, you know, they're not relevant and they don't really have a say. And I just think that's wrong. Like, they've been there for 60 years and it's like a world-class thing. We get tourists from all over the world going there. The town of Natamuck, which is right next to Arapalis, it was built on rock climbing. Like, you know, all the people that have moved there, a lot of them are like, you know, professionals, like doctors and teachers and this sort of thing. They moved out to the country for that lifestyle. They wanted that sort of lifestyle. They're really important to the local economy. And the idea that they won't be able to do the activity that they moved there for is outrageous, I think. And all Victorians should be asking questions about that. And yeah, so I don't see this as like a regional issue, really. I think all Victorians should be concerned about it, because all Victorians really use parks.
I feel so bad for Natamuck, that poor little town.
Well, the fight's not over yet, but yeah, like I went out there and we recorded some, you know, we talked to lots of locals. You know, the only way, I'm a big believer in, you got to just go and get amongst it and talk to people. And sometimes that gets me into trouble because I end up going to all these protests all the time. But look, I mean, you can't really get a good sense of things unless you get amongst it and talk to people and ask them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're sort of just doing it all secondhand. And I don't trust what the government says about things, and I don't trust what the media says about things. So the only way to really figure it out is to just go out there yourself. And that's what I normally do.
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
totally commendable. I love that you did that. And I remember actually commenting on when I saw that you'd been there, and I was like, thank you for doing that, because you didn't have to do that. And it's a beautiful thing that you did, was just even going there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. I tried rock climbing while I was there. I'm not very good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, you do it better than me. I wouldn't have even tried.
Yeah.
So,
I thought I can't go all the way out there and not have a crack, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think on every podcast it's good to have a little disagreement. So I'll have one with David. I don't actually mind the rural city divide, but I will say this. Well, only because of the way we get treated out here by the government. But I will say this.
I think that's a problem. I agree. Like the government does treat regional areas badly, and I think that's what's causing this. And I want to put an end to that. So yeah.
So yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If we had more like you in Parliament, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So, someone with principles the same or at least similar to yours, where you just don't treat people badly and take their stuff and their land rights, which will lead me into my next question.
Yes.
Again, your electorate, you don't actually have a lot of sort of farming areas. Most of the voters you have there to grab aren't actually farmers, but you fight really hard.
There's a bunch of market farmers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Still, I mean,
there's a few egg farms. There's egg farms too. But yeah, like not broadacre farming. No.
Yeah, and I'm watching your fight, and you come out, which I expect from you because I know you, but I want other people to recognise what this actually means. It's like, so you're coming out with your principles. You're defending farmers' private property rights. You're speaking against these unfair taxes. I think Carly has a video we can put on one of your speeches. And you speak with passion, with genuine concern for these people.
Yeah.
What is it about libertarians that this is such an important issue, particularly on the private property rights?
Property rights is a fundamental concept for libertarians. So we believe in property rights, right? And what this bill is doing and why we're opposing it is fundamentally about property rights, because they're saying, well, farmers in this case can't choose who goes on their land and who doesn't and who gets access, right? This is a problem, but it's, again, it's not really, I don't think, a city country issue. It's a statewide, or actually it's a nationwide issue, because when you do this to farmers, what you're doing effectively is you're lowering productivity for the farmers, right? Like, because parts of their land they can't farm on anymore when you force them to have power lines and stuff over it. You're also setting precedents about property rights for everyone in Victoria. And when you lower that productivity, that hurts everyone, because it means food prices are either more expensive or maybe some farms that might be marginal already, maybe they'll stop producing. And this is a problem. And everyone in Victoria eats food, right? So, I want food to be as efficiently produced as possible so that it's cheap for everyone. And if you want food, you need farmers. So like, it just seems totally natural to me that we should be defending the rights of farmers and making life as easy as possible for them to succeed in whatever they're doing. If they can produce food and fiber efficiently, that's good for everyone. That means that they make money. That means that food's cheaper for people, more abundant. It means we get exports for Australia. We can sell to other countries. It's not just for Australia. It's also for, China and Japan and everyone else that buys our stuff. It's really important for our country. So, and everyone that consumes these products. So I just think it's totally natural that we should be concerned about farming. And like, it's also, one of our agricultures, one of our state's biggest industries. Without that industry, what's Victoria got left? We've got some manufacturing. There's a lot of manufacturing in my area. We've got some other things like education and that, but agriculture is a big thing for Victoria.
I think with that, I will play your speech from Wednesday.
All right.
My name is David Limbrick. I'm from the Libertarian Party. Yesterday, the United Nations was telling us if we don't do what they tell us to do, we'll only be able to eat fresh fruit and veggies as a treat once a year in Australia. That's what they were telling us. What a joke. And the Victorian government, they tell us if we don't do what they tell us to do, that the world's going to burn and that everyone's going to die and that we're going to have droughts and all these horrible things are going to happen. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. In the global scheme of things, it doesn't matter what Victoria does. What Victoria needs to think about, what I'd like Victoria to think about, is what's best for Victoria, not what's best for the UN, not what's best for everyone else, not what's best for Victoria. What we're seeing with these global forces trying to influence our governments all throughout the world is the fact is that they're pushing us with this net zero agenda. And what we're seeing with the infringements on property rights, as we're seeing with this bill, when people push back, is only the start of what's going to happen. No one in the world has gotten to net zero yet. No one will, and it doesn't matter what Victoria does. Net zero has to go.
Yes! Yes!
We need cheap and abundant energy, regardless of the energy source for Victorians, because what's happening now is it's going to result in more expensive energy and it's going to result in more infringements on your rights. And we're just seeing the start of it with what they're doing with these horrible fines for going onto people's lands. If it's your land, you should have the right to say who comes on and who does not come on to your land. Thank you.
It was very good.
Yeah, so there was another issue that I brought up there, and it's not just about farming, is it? It's also about energy, and everyone uses energy, and I can tell you Southeast Metro uses a lot of energy, especially in those factories. We've had lots of people go bankrupt because of energy prices, and I think that this is a really big issue for Victoria. Oh, it's a big issue for the nation, really, and we need to rethink what we're doing, because we have this net zero agenda which has been pushed onto Australia, and it's been pushed onto us by all these global forces like the UN, but also our own governments. Indeed, both major parties both support it at a federal level and also at a state level in Victoria. And people don't think about the morality of this. They say, if you oppose net zero, they say, oh, you're a climate change denier or something. And what I say to people is, even if you accept even the most alarmist stuff that some people say about climate change, right? Let's say that we just accept everything that they say is true. Victoria's contribution to that is negligible. We are nothing more than a rounding error in the scheme of things, and that's the truth. So when they say, "Oh, if you don't, go to 100% renewable energy in Victoria, the world's going to burn or whatever," that's just a lie. It's just a flat out lie. And we're not talking about science anymore. We're talking about morality. And when we've got China, India, the United States are all pulling away from this, and our total emissions for the whole country wouldn't even account for a yearly increase in the emissions from China, right? So
it's 1.1%.
Yeah, I think last time I checked, it was about 1.3 or something. But it's
ridiculous.
It's tiny. It's tiny in the scheme of things. And here's the other thing that people don't talk about. They go on about how we're exporting coal, and other people are burning our coal in the world. A lot of it's for steel, by the way, which there aren't any good substitutes for coal at the moment. You can technically use hydrogen, but there's no large mills using it. It's all coking coal. But what they don't talk about is our uranium exports. We export enough uranium to generate carbon zero emission energy from nuclear energy, almost equivalent to the entire electricity production of our local grid in Australia. And we export that, and we enable other countries to produce zero emission nuclear energy. We enable it through our exports. And yet, for some stupid reason, we've decided to tie our hands behind our back, and we don't use it ourselves. It's just nuts. So, I just see this as I actually think Australia is doing great things in the world when we're exporting this energy to the world. We're making, in many cases, we're helping bring poor people out of poverty, right? When we export coal and other energy to India and to China, we're helping those countries develop and raise themselves out of poverty, and at the same time, we're making money as well. So like trade is a wonderful thing between countries, and we shouldn't be saying, oh, let's stop all coal exports. Let's just cut it off, as if India's not just going to go and buy it from Brazil or something, which of course they will. But they don't, because they don't at the moment, because we're closer. We're in a wonderful, geographic position in Australia, right beneath Asia, right? We're really close. So the shipping costs are really cheap to most of Asia. And, we've got to take advantage of that as well with agriculture. Like a lot of the food and fiber that we produce, we export to Asia. And, it's a great thing. So, I just think that energy policy, we've just got it all wrong. We're tying our hands behind our back to do what? For what benefit? There's nothing really. And even the people that push this, like the Greens and the government, they can't explain, like, is Victoria going to change planetary weather systems if we build windmills and have more taxes and more farms lose their property rights? Of course not. It's not going to do anything. All it is just sending a signal to the rest of the world.
Virtue signaling. That's all they do.
Yeah,
they get those warm and happy feelings in their hearts, and they go, we're being good. We're being such great citizens to the global population, but they don't care about what they're doing to literally us.
And the dumb thing is, like, these people that are pushing us, like they could barely even find us on a map. Like seriously, they don't. Like I love Australia and I love Victoria, but like the rest of the world does not see Australia as some big superpower or anything like that, right? They don't watch us and say, wow, those guys are really the leaders in the world and stuff. They just see us as, a nice country with kangaroos and stuff and, friendly people and things like that. That we're not leading the world on these sort of things. Like, it's just not really a thing. And if we want to lead the world...
They're laughing at us.
Well, yeah, in lots of cases they are. And if we want to really lead the world, we should become more prosperous. And we're not going to become more prosperous with expensive energy, because everything that we do requires energy. When you start up a tractor on a farm, you need energy. When you harvest a crop, you need energy. When you drive to work, you need energy. When you run a factory in my area, you need energy. And if those energy costs are high, a lot of businesses just go out of business and they can't operate anymore. And we're seeing energy costs just go up and up and up and up. Historically, we used to have really, really cheap energy in Victoria. We've got mountains of brown coal that is, really cheap to use. They can't really transport it and sell it because it's such low energy density, but that's why they built the power stations right near the mines, right? Historically, also, we had lots of gas. I remember when I was at university, your gas bill used to be the one that you weren't afraid of because it was so cheap. But now gas is really expensive because they've banned fracking. They banned it in the Constitution. They've banned all these technologies. And now we're facing, over the medium term, we're facing potential gas shortages, which is a massive problem. And guess what one of the biggest users of gas is now? It's electricity production to make up for when windmills aren't working or when the sun's not shining. They need fast ramp, on demand generation. Coal power plants can't ramp up and down that quickly. They're sort of much more stable, right? So the only thing that can sort of really ramp up really quickly is either a battery or a gas turbine, and there's not enough batteries to handle the load that we need. So most of it goes to gas. So yeah,
it's so dumb.
Yeah, I think
really expensive gas.
Well, what I really loved in that speech is you were the only one of the politicians that came out and really called out the bigger issue, instead of sort of making sure people understood, like, this isn't just they want to build power lines. That there's a bigger issue that's pushing that through. And I really appreciated that you were willing to come out and say that just as it is.
Again,
I
don't think the libs behind you appreciated it, but
no, probably not. Well, I mean, this is the thing about, they're scared of getting called names by the Labor Party. And even in the day after that, this is what happened yesterday in Parliament. One of the Labor MPs got up and read in a notice of motion about the protest that happened on Wednesday. and basically said how, you know, the Liberal Party are climate deniers and stuff like this, and like it was just dumb. And I complained to Labor. I said, "Why didn't you name me? I was the one that said I'm against net zero, not the Liberal Party. They didn't say that." But yeah, look, it needs to be said. And like, I'm a bit frustrated that I'm one of the few in Victorian Parliament that is saying it, because it's just, I just think we're on the wrong path, and eventually it will become apparent due to, you know, physical reality. But I'd prefer us not to get to that point where we're talking about blackouts and energy shortages and stuff. I'd rather we fix it well before that. And, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, through things like talking to you guys, maybe people will wake up to that idea.
It would be nice, but it does seem like it's going to take it getting very, very bad before people will realise that we're on the wrong path. Like when
what people don't realise, what people don't realise with the renewables rollout, they think it's like, most people think of it as, oh, we'll shut down the coal-fired power, and then we'll increase the renewables power, and then eventually we'll get to a point where it'll be 100% renewables, and then that's it, we're done. But what they don't really think about is the life cycle of this infrastructure. If you think about solar panels, the lifespan of those is about 20 years, wind turbines between 20 and 30 years, something like that. By the time you get to 100%, I don't think you'll actually get to 100%. I think no one's done it and no one will do it. But by the time, let's say we get to 80% or something, right? That's technically feasible, I think. It'll be very expensive, but we'll get there. By the time you get to that, you're going to have to replace all the first infrastructure that you started with. So it's not like you're installing infrastructure and using it for a certain period of time. You're perpetually replacing renewables infrastructure all over the state forever. Like that's what it, and you're dependent on, in most cases, you're dependent on that being cheap because it's produced in China. So you're setting up a perpetual dependence on China, which, like, even if it was cheap, and even if everything they said was great, strategically that doesn't seem like a really smart thing to do to me. I'd much rather Australia have more energy independence, and setting ourselves up to be perpetually dependent on China is a bad idea. Now, if you talk to renewables people about this, they'll say, well, we should start producing it in Australia then. And, you know, that would be wonderful and everything, but then it's not cheap anymore. And then you've got a problem. It's expensive now if you do that. So, yeah.
It's just so ridiculous, isn't it? It's like they're going to be just turning over money constantly to these overseas companies to redo these structures, and it's just, I don't see how people can actually not see through this sham. But anyway,
yeah. No, look, like I said, I really appreciate that. Now, I want to get into just a bit of a discussion about who you are in the Libertarian Party. But before we do that, there was a video you released, well, it must be a month or so ago now, with you at Cathedral Park.
Yeah, I went camping with one of my boys.
Yeah, which is lovely. I'm a little bit offended because I don't live far from there and you didn't hit me up for a coffee. But anyway.
Sorry.
How about we play it and then we'll talk about it?
Sure.
Well, I think real quick. So yeah, you did a video there, and I want to give you a chance to sort of explain what we're actually talking about in this video. So if we play the video, and then we can talk about some of the comments that came out of that, and then we'll clarify some things.
Why was Victoria's free camping such an epic failure? I'm up here at beautiful Cathedral Range State Park near Buxton in Victoria, and I came up here with one of my youngest son, and we've been up here for a couple of days. But free camping, what happened last year? The government announced that there would be a huge number of campsites that would be free. And that sounds great, doesn't it? But of course, it had a problem. What happened was many people booked these campsites because they're free, and why wouldn't you? And just to reserve that, and then they never showed up. And the fact of the matter is that managed campsites are a limited resource. And one way to limit access to those resources, because all resources are scarce, is through price. And when you set the price to zero, you set demand at very high, And what happens is you end up with less people camping, not more, and the government end up waiving $7 million in revenue, and less people camped, and it was a disaster. So yet another example of why socialism doesn't work.
I love that last sentence. Yet another example of why socialism doesn't work.
Yeah, so the story here is, as you would know, throughout Victoria, there's many managed campsites, right? So sites that have fireplaces, they'll have toilets. Some of them even have bookable individual sites. Cathedral Range, you can't book an individual site, but you can book access to it. And ever since I've been there, since, I don't know, I think the first time I went camping there was around 2000 or something, you've always had to pay a fee to cover the costs of maintaining the campsite, right? And in the olden days, you used to get a little envelope, and then you put your coins in the envelope, and then you take a ticket out, and then you put that on your car, and then you put the envelope in a steel box. And then when the ranger comes around, he can say, oh, well, he's paid his fee to make sure that the long drop's clean and that the fire pits are working and stuff, right? That's the way they used to do it. Lots of campsites like that. Now, then more recently, there was ones that you could book individual sites, and you'd have to pay for that at other ones. And so that's fine too. And then the government, of course, moved to an online booking system because it's more efficient than, managing cash in the steel boxes and stuff. And they did that many years ago now. And that was fine. But then the government decided that rather than have a cost recovery model for these managed campsites, they were just going to make it free. And of course, what happened was entirely predictable. As I said, like, you've got a limited resource, which is the number of managed campsites that you can book, and it's free now. So people were booking them. You'd get groups that would book out areas of the campsite so that they get a nice private, quiet campsite, and they just wouldn't use the ones around them, which was pretty evil thing to do. You'd get other ones where people would book it thinking that they might take a holiday, and then they don't actually turn up, and that's a problem too. And so what you ended up with was less people camping, and as was said in that article, and I mentioned in the video, $7 million of money that they would have collected to help manage those campsites. They never actually collected that because people didn't turn up. And so, yeah, the whole system was stupid. Anyway, the government's realized it's stupid, and it's gone back to a paid booking system, although they do discounts now. So like when I booked Cathedral Range, because it was winter, they gave a 50% discount, I think, which I thought was interesting. But they're not free anymore.
They're increasing them at peak times though. So that over summer and everything like that, there's going to be big increases. So yeah, just keep that in mind for when you're booking for peak times.
Yeah. So what this didn't affect was things like, free camping, where you go in, if it's not a managed campsite, then, you don't have to pay. And like, we're not advocating, like Libertarian Party's not advocating that you should pay to go into the forest and camp, in the middle of nowhere. But for the managed campsites, it makes sense that the people that are using the campsite should pay for upkeep of the campsite through a small fee. They're usually pretty small fees. Because if they're not paying for it, someone else is paying for it. And that's, where I made the socialist remark, because effectively that's when you expect stuff for free for other people to pay for it, because it seems fair. If you're the one using it, you should be the one paying for it. Although I would say that when I went to Cathedral Range, I did pay my fee. I didn't see a ranger the whole time. So anyway.
You wouldn't.
It was a bit weird. I remember when I used to go camping there was always rangers going around. Maybe it's because it was winter and not many people there and wasn't very popular. So maybe they didn't worry.
Right.
But yeah, so that's the story with that. And I know there were some people that watched that video and probably thought, oh, why is he saying we should pay to camp in the forest? Well, you've always had to pay for these campsites, at least as long as I can remember. I mean, when did they bring in that? I think those steel boxes and stuff, they've been there forever, haven't they?
I remember them when I was a kid. So, like in the 90s, I remember them.
Yeah, like they've always been a thing, like at those managed sites. They always used to have the steel boxes. Look, I think a booking system is better, because one of the problems that you have as a family, that was always a problem with those steel boxes, is it's first in, best dressed. Yeah. And if you're working and you've got to travel there, you don't want to pack up all your gear, get your get your wife and kids in the car, drive up there, and then find out there's no sites left. Like, that would sort of suck. So I think having it able to be booked in advance is a good thing. But when it's for free, that's a problem, because you might not turn up and then all of a sudden you've got a problem. So
Yeah.
So David might have covered all that. Was there any need to bring up any of those comments, Carly, or we'll move on?
Look, I don't really. I think they're just, well, maybe just this one. This was one that was so yeah, terrible argument for somebody just trying to shill libertarianism, and a weird take at that. Being able to freely access public land isn't socialism. There are plenty of ways to address ghost bookings other than deterrence via price hikes. If he were honest about the purist libertarian take, he wouldn't want there to be such a thing as public land, and we'd be properly locked out of everything, of everywhere, with a mess of fees and levies to camp where private landholders would permit.
Well, I mean, what they're saying isn't really right. Like, so they're saying, all right, there are other ways that you could address the ghost booking. So you could say, well, you charge a fee if you don't turn up or something. But then, of course, you need someone to check that, and that's not free either. So, but ultimately, if you're going to have public land with managed services on those areas, like a campsite or whatever it might be, it only makes sense that the people that use it should pay for it. What he's saying about, wider libertarian things, that we don't think that there should be public land. I mean, what I do think is, I don't mind the idea of having local communities run parks and things like that. In fact, I think that would be a good thing, to have a local board or something that runs it. I don't think that the state government does a very good job of running these things. So I'm open-minded about, alternative models. But ultimately, if you're going to have services in a park, someone's got to pay for those services, right? And for camping,
otherwise
it's
it'll be the
easy.
taxpayer.
Or it will just get neglected, which is even worse. You see that in parks all the time, where they're not maintained properly and get overgrown with weeds, or you'll get a campsite which looks like an absolute mess. Or, like when people go camping, right, especially if you're going to a managed campsite with your family, if they don't have a lot of services there, right, they're pretty minimal, but, they'll usually have a toilet, they'll usually have fire pits with concrete around them, they'll usually have some basic sort of outdoor furniture and stuff like that, and roads and things like this. And you want them to be in decent condition. Otherwise, what's the point of it? And, that costs money. Someone's got to pay for that. And, the fees on these, I mean, I think I paid for Cathedral Range, from memory, I think it was $15. Like, it's not a huge amount of money. And you've always had to pay a fee. Like, ever since I've been camping there, it just used to be the old-fashioned steel box, which, that's got its problems too. People used to rob it, I think. Yeah.
It does, yeah. They use machines now, but
box, right?
No, look, the thing is,
now.
having two like options. So with the national park and state parks, having that paid option where you can book and you can make your decision to leave late, and that you're going to have your site there and everything. It's not a free for all. That's one option you can have. So then that's where state forests come in. If you're wanting to just go anywhere, you just go to a state forest, and that's and there's no booking, there's no nothing. It's a free for all. So you've got the best of both worlds with the two things. So that's why we were so against locking up state forests into national parks, because then it's all managed by the state, and you've all got to pay for everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, the reason that I chose Cathedral Range is because I was going with a young boy, my son, and we wanted to make sure, we wanted a toilet, and we wanted to know that there was some basic services there, right? So nothing special. But if I was going out by myself hiking or something, maybe I don't need that. I'll just go somewhere that you don't need to pay. I think last time I went camping, I went hiking up in well, this was actually in a national park in Alpine Ranges National Park, and but that was out in the middle of nowhere, and there was no fees or anything, and the only service they had was an emergency winter hut, which we checked out, which was cool, but yeah, they didn't have any services there.
That's when you got to go dig a hole.
Yeah. Oh, we did find a long. We did find a long drop, but yeah. Sometimes you got to dig a hole. We did have our shovel with us, but yeah.
Let's not talk with our politicians.
I had to.
No. Well, you got to do what you got to do, right? So
exactly. We all do it, even politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other politicians, not David.
Not David.
No,
not David.
Oh, the other politicians are full of it, as far as I can tell.
Oh,
yeah, well, they wouldn't leave their hole.
So that conversation actually took up a lot of our time, which is nice. But I would like to just get to know David. Well, for everyone else to get to know David a bit more on a personal level. So and I know a little bit to sort of start the conversation. So, David, music.
Yeah,
you're a drummer boy, aren't you?
Well, I don't play much these days, but yeah, I used to play drums a lot. I've got 3 sons, and they're all musicians. I'm very happy to report they don't all play drums, but 2 of them do. But yeah, my first job when I was still at high school was as a drum tutor. I got a job at the local music shop, teaching kids beginning drumming and stuff, and then I played drums for many years in bands, and I used to play in like metal bands basically. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a metal chick.
Yeah. I used to play in a death metal band. So yeah.
I'm death metal chick. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. I
went to the first Morbid Angel concert in Australia. There you go.
Oh, I've been grieving bloody Ozzy Osbourne the last week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sad too. Yeah,
it's very sad.
We didn't play any Ozzy, but yeah, Ozzy's a interesting character.
An icon.
Yeah. Yeah, made some classic songs, that's for sure.
I deliberately didn't tell Carly about your past because I thought it'd be nice for that revelation to come on a podcast. So.
He always sets me up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think my boys are into metal at all. They're sort of more into different stuff. So yeah. But actually, one of my boys is playing piano, and he loves Queen, so he's like playing all these Queen songs.
Queen's good.
Queen's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, you should get him on. You should get him onto Avenged Sevenfold and Slipknot and a few other ones like that.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I could maybe try it. I don't know. I sometimes play like metal songs in the car and stuff, and like they're like, "Oh, Dad," like I don't know. It used to be edgy, like listening to metal, and now the kids just think it sounds old. And I'm like, "Oh God, it must be getting old. It's not good."
I must be old too. Then Tim's been in my car, and that's all it is screaming and.
They did like a few Metallica songs I played, so there might be hope yet.
Okay, yeah. So good to know.
So what gets someone from being a drummer in a death metal band into politics? I mean, it seems like polar opposites.
Well, I mean, my career wasn't playing music. It was just something I was doing while I was at university and stuff. I worked in, so my educational background, I studied physics and computer science, and I spent most of my career working in an area what's called business intelligence, which is like collecting data and stuff like that. And I didn't really pay much attention to politics until around the time of the Iraq War, actually. And I was so outraged that our government, this was the Howard government at the time, sent our country to war based on these lies. And I was really angry about it. I was like, hang on a minute. Like, you know how they were saying about these weapons of mass destruction and all this sort of stuff. And then we found out later it was all bullshit. And I was just like, how on earth did that happen? And then that sent me down a path of like questioning the state itself, questioning like the functions of the state. And yeah, I ended up becoming a libertarian. And then I got involved with the party around 2013.
Mhm.
And then, I helped the party get registered in Victoria in 2014. And then one of the guys, I was pretty new to the party at the time. One of the guys said, "Oh, would you like to run as a candidate?" And I said, "Oh, not really." But they wanted me to do it. So I ran as a candidate just to help out the guys, and then they said, "Don't worry, you're not going to get elected. It's just, because we need people to run and stuff." I said, all right, that's cool. And then eventually in 2016, I ran again for the Senate. Again, there was no chance of me winning any of that sort of stuff. I was just helping out. And then by 2018, I was on the state executive of the party at the time. And, but the party, it was taking a lot of my time, and I had a young family and career and stuff. And so I said to the other guys, look, I'm still going to support you guys and do whatever I can, but I can't spend as much time in the party, doing all this stuff, because it's taking a lot of time. I have to step back a little bit. And so I said, I know there's an election coming soon, so I'll help out till the election's over, and then I'll step back a bit, and gave them a heads up, and they were cool with that. They said, yeah, that's fine. But can you just run as a candidate one more time, just to help out? I said, oh yeah, okay, I suppose I can do that. Yeah, I'll help you guys out. And then I bloody got elected, and it was a total surprise. I wasn't expecting it. The main person that we thought was going to get elected, or we were hoping would get elected, was actually Tim Quilty, and he got elected, which was great. But then I also got elected, which was sort of not expected by anyone, least of all me. And so I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my boss. He knew that I was running, but I don't think he thought I was going to get elected either. He just thought it was a bit of a laugh. And so, yeah, I got elected. And then I thought, well, ever since I got elected, I thought, well, I'm a member of this party. We're meant to have these principles. And, I want to be, if I'm going to represent our party and represent these principles of standing up for the rights of Victorians, I want to be remembered as the guy that actually stuck to that and actually did it, and didn't bullshit people, and actually followed through with it. So, we're really careful to try and make sure that we stick to those principles all the time. Like when we're analysing legislation and forming our opinions, when we're dealing with people, when we're choosing issues that we can bring up, we try to stick to that all the time, because I feel really strongly that there's a space for parties that stick to certain principles, and a lot of people like the fact that we stick to principles, even if sometimes they don't agree with them, because otherwise you're sort of random, right? And I think a lot of parties, they sort of just have these sort of random views. They just do whatever they think people sounds nice, or whatever the polls tell them to do. I mean, I don't have enough resources for polling data, so we just do what we think is right and hope that people agree with us, I guess. So yeah,
I think that's commendable, and we've lost Tim. I don't know what happened there, but
he disappeared.
Yeah, he does that every now and then. He probably hasn't charged his phone or something.
Right.
But it's great to see. I'm a big political nerd. Oh, there he is. He's back. No, he's still black. Yeah, I'm a big political nerd, so I do actually watch you a lot.
All right.
On the live stream, and I'm always, always agreeing with what you're standing for and what you're doing, and it's good to watch you do your thing in there. I'm always behind the way that you're voting, or the way that you're doing something, or it's nice to have a real person in there.
Well, I try to be as real as I can, but yeah, sometimes the positions we take are, they are popular, and sometimes they're not. But ultimately, if you've got a set of beliefs, you've got to try and prosecute them. But the problem that, the real problem is, I think, we just need more libertarians in Parliament. Really, is the main issue, because I'm just one person, so I have to pick and choose what battles I fight, because I can't fight every battle. And so we have to pick and choose what we do. So, I mean, that's the main thing. And, next year we've got an opportunity, I guess, to try and change that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back, Tim.
Hey, Tim, what happened? You just disappeared.
Not disturbed. My mother tries to call me.
Oh, your mother.
That'll happen.
That's all right. Me and David were just talking.
Yeah.
So I just caught the end of that conversation about having more representation in Parliament. You might have already covered this, but did you sort of cover how there's not only a limited amount of time you can put into things, but you can only introduce so many bills per year or something? Like, did you guys cover that?
No, not really. So yeah, like individual MPs on the crossbench, you get a number of mechanisms in Parliament through which you can do things. So, you know, in a sitting week like we just had this week, I'll usually get one question that I can ask to the government, like a question without notice. We get other mechanisms as well. I won't go into all the details, but we also on Wednesdays, there's like what's called a general business slot, and each MP basically gets 2 general business slots per year, and they can put forward anything they like for debate. So we've got 2 this year in the Libertarian Party. One's in August and one's in November. I'm not going to reveal what we're doing yet in August. We're still ironing it out. But yeah, so you get 2 chances to put forward. It can either be a motion or it could be a private member's bill where you're actually trying to, you know, introduce legislation. But yeah, so that, like there's a range of opportunities through Parliament to do things. Of course, you know, because we don't have the numbers to pass things, a lot of it is really about bringing attention to issues or trying to influence the conversation on issues. And I think, you know, what happened with the petition this week is one interesting way of doing that. Petitions are a good way of, you know, letting people know that there's a groundswell behind something. But also, if you've got something that you're moving and you go to the media and talk about it, or on social media, and a lot of people get behind it, then that can change conversations. And I think that we've been really successful in changing a lot of conversations. I can give you some examples. When I first got elected to Parliament, it was almost taboo to talk about nuclear energy. And we immediately started talking about nuclear energy, and to the point where I tried to bring in a private member's bill in 2023 to repeal the nuclear prohibitions in Victoria, and the opposition supported it, believe it or not. So, you know, that was an interesting thing. Another one is around the tobacco wars. We've been trying to highlight the drivers of organised crime in Victoria. What's the fundamental reason for that? And we managed to get that to a point where even the government and the police are acknowledging that the root cause of the tobacco wars is excise tax, which we've said all along. Yeah, excise tax, and also the fact that they've made vapes basically prohibited and difficult to access. So you've made tobacco so expensive that most people can't afford it. You've made alternatives to smoking difficult to access, and organised crime's just filled in the gaps. And you know, you can buy vapes anywhere now. And you can buy cheap cigarettes anywhere, but they're not legal. They're supplied by organised crime. But of course, organised crime fight each other over turf, and that's why you get so many arson attacks. One of the reasons. But yeah, so I mean, I think we've been pretty successful in a few different policy areas of like changing the conversation around it, and I hope to do that with net zero. I think that you know, we need to get to the point where at least the Liberal Party is saying, well, they don't support net zero as well. I know it's a point of discussion within the Liberal Party, but you know, that's what leadership's about, right? Is showing, we're saying we think that this is the best thing for Victoria, or this is the right thing for Victoria, irrespective of whether we're scared to say it or whether it's popular or not. And, you know, if we're doing the right thing, hopefully people will listen to us and follow that. And that's what I think leadership is about. And that's what I was talking about on Wednesday with the net zero stuff. I think we just need to face reality that all of this stuff with the transmission lines and everything is being driven by this net zero agenda. We need to call it out and say, build a movement of people that are going to say, enough, we're not going to support this anymore. It's over. Like, we're going to stop it. And, you know, that's what we need to do, I think.
Get a spine, basically.
Yeah, but like it's we need like large numbers of people to also believe that. Like if it's just a small, if it's just
People
me
are
saying
waking
it, who
up.
cares, right? Yeah, I think
People
they
are
are.
waking up. They are.
That speech I did on Wednesday has gone nuts on social media. Like 100,000 people have seen it now, and
Yeah. And
Sky
even the
News
cheering in the
contacted me
crowd and everything, that was insane. It was very popular speech. So
yeah, and we need more people to think that way.
Yeah, look, on the tobacco wars, I watched the Libertarians were calling that out early. Both you, John Ruddock, even Tim Quilty back when he was in Parliament.
Senator Leyonhjelm was doing it way before me.
Yeah.
He was doing it back in 2013. In fact, he predicted these locked-in excise tax increases were locked in years ago in federal Parliament, and Senator Leyonhjelm was calling it out back then. He said this is going to result in an explosion in organised crime. That's not his exact words, but basically that's what he said, and he was dead right. Like that's exactly what's happened.
So it just always strikes me strange and so we have gone over the hour. You're okay for another couple of minutes?
Yeah.
So it just strikes me as really strange because, like, Senator Leyonhjelm makes that argument. I've heard you, I've heard John Ruddock, I've heard Tim Quilty, and like it's just so obviously true. Like you hear the argument and you go, well, yeah, duh, of course that's going to happen. Why?
common sense.
I don't know if you can answer it, but why don't politicians who are meant to be intelligent people, why don't they see it?
Yeah, that is a good question. It's not a stupid question at all. It's obvious to anyone that like looks
Lives
at
in the real
economics.
world.
If they look at economics in its raw sense, it's totally obvious what's going to happen. But you have to think about the way that the state is set up, right? So there's been these public health lobbyists for decades that have been saying that, if we do this and we do that, so if we increase excise taxes, if we make the packets plain packaging and all this sort of stuff, that we're going to decrease smoking rates, right? And so they've had all these lobbyists have been telling, and people in public health have been telling politicians for years that this is the way to do things, right? Now, we've gotten to a point where the politicians are still listening to the public health lobbyists, even when the state is literally on fire from arson, because these guys don't want to back down. They don't want to say they were wrong. They don't want to lose their jobs. This sort of thing. And
there's money.
Yeah, there's money in it. Like they've got careers. There's academics that have done research on it. There's like all these people that are saying, oh, you need to ban vaping and you need to keep raising excise taxes, all this sort of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, they're wrong. And like I've said publicly, actually what we need to do to fix this is someone needs to have the balls to say, we need to sack all these people. Like anyone who was pushing for increases, any of the advisors, any government advisors or lobbyists that were pushing for excise tax increases, they need to be sacked. Like seriously, they need to be sacked. They need to be wiped out because they were wrong. And their proposed policy course has resulted in widespread explosion of organised crime in Victoria. It's resulted in murders, like for God's sake. Like, I mean, these people have blood on their hands.
And if anyone did this in a normal everyday job, and everything started exploding with the meme with the fire. The house is on fire, and this guy's sitting there going, "I'm fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine." If anyone did that in a normal everyday job, you'd be gone. You get fired. Why don't these people get fired?
You have this class of people in the state, so like a public health class, and they all sort of seem to think the same way. And it's the same with energy policy. It's the same thing. They all seem to think the same way, and they don't like any outsiders coming in and challenging their views, even if their views turn out to be wrong. And like I actually see big similarities between energy policy and public health, in that you've got this sort of crazy course of action which is leading to disaster, and no one wants to back away from it because they're sort of staked their whole careers on it, and it's a big problem. So I think there's very big similarity between what we see. Public health. One of the good things about the pandemic, not many good things about the pandemic, But one good thing about the pandemic is lots of people started questioning public health experts because they started seeing like the sort of things that they come up with and how they're sometimes not really based on science at all. And a lot of it is just based on, herding effects and what their peers say is acceptable to say. And a lot of people started asking questions, and they're saying, well, if they were wrong about this stuff with COVID, what else are they wrong about? And actually they're wrong about a lot.
So now they're shutting down the internet.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, they're not shutting it down, but they're certainly asking for ID and stuff like that. Well, we'll see.
A lot of censorship.
Yeah, look, it's gotten a bit better recently, but I just think that the technical challenge that they're facing here, I think they've totally one of their biggest weaknesses is that they have total faith that government can just like will into existence their policies, and in the real world, actually, some of these things are really, really hard to do, and they underestimate how difficult these things are. And something as simple as like asking for identification and making that properly verified through a social media platform, the government like actually making that happen is not as simple as you think. And the other thing is, like, a lot of these social media companies, this is another thing with Australia. Australia is a small place. The government's sort of betting on these social media companies not just shutting down in Australia. But there was one this week that said it was Signal. So I know many people use Signal. I use Signal. Signal has said, if you force us to put back doors on our stuff in Australia, we just won't operate in Australia anymore. And I don't see why YouTube or X or any of these other platforms couldn't do exactly the same thing. Because like Australia's not just not a huge market for them. They don't care that much. We act
not
as
special.
if we could. Yeah, and you get Albo stand up and say, these social media companies are going to do what we tell them to do. And a lot of them are just like, what are you talking about? Who are you?
Who's
like,
Albo?
Who's this guy? They don't even know who he is.
Who's this nerd?
Yeah, and that like their finance guys will be looking at, well, how much revenue does Australia account for? And like a lot of them will be saying, it's like, about 1% of revenue. Like, we'll just shut it down then, we'll just shut it down. That's what Signal's done. They just say, we'll just shut it down. Don't care.
So dumb.
Yeah. I hope not. I quite enjoy using Signal.
I know, so do I. It's a good tool. But like it says a lot that the company is like, because they know that if they're forced to build in back doors, then trust in their product will be destroyed. So
that's the whole reason people use it.
Yeah, because they trust it, right? And if they think that there's back doors in it that the government's forced them to put in there, they might as well just shut it down. Apple had a similar thing, like because they've got end-to-end encryption technology in iMessage, and they had a big fight with the UK government recently because the UK government wanted to have back doors into it to access Apple messages, and like there's been lots of companies that have had big fights over this. Yeah.
I just need to get out of our lives.
I agree.
So, David, just let us know if you need to run, mate, because I know you are a busy guy.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
I was hoping before we ended the podcast, because I know as a libertarian, and personally doesn't frustrate me because I'm a bit of a conservative-minded libertarian in that my private life is conservative, my politics is libertarian. But libertarians often sort of get lumped in as being conservatives, and strictly speaking, we're not. I mean, wasn't all that long ago when the conservatives have all the power, your libertarian-minded people were considered left-wing crazy people. So it's like, we can't win. We stay pretty consistent. But can you maybe just, I don't know, just a short brief, what's the difference between a libertarian and a conservative, and even with a libertarian and, say, the left side of politics?
Yeah. Like, well, when I was talking about when I became a libertarian or when I started questioning things, it was actually initially I was fighting or I was upset against a conservative government. That was the Liberal government at the time over what they did. I think the big difference between both the left and conservatives and libertarians is libertarians are the only ones that question the basic machinery of the state. We question particular roles of the state itself. Where the left and conservatives are very similar is that they are both big believers in control of the state. They just think that if they manage it their way, that it will result in better outcomes. And you make a really interesting point, though, Tim, about personally conservative and libertarian. Actually, like, libertarian is a very simple idea in that, the non-aggression principle. We believe that people should be able to do what they want as long as they're not initiating force against other people. But how they live their personal life is of no means. Libertarians don't say how people should live their personal life. Quite the opposite. We say, and like many libertarians, as you say, will, they'll live, they have a traditional nuclear family and all that sort of stuff. And we don't say how people should live their personal lives. But conservatives, on the other hand, and I'm talking about political conservatives, not like you, Tim, political conservatives, they will try and force that on to other people. And that's exactly what the left does as well. And so we're quite different in that regard, in that we don't try and force particular beliefs or lifestyles onto people. We simply say that we question what the role of the state should be. And we think that the state should have a much smaller role in people's lives. You talk to many conservatives, they'll be, they might talk a big game on free speech and stuff like that. But as soon as there's a book they don't like, they'll be calling for it to be banned. As soon as someone says something about something that they don't like, they'll be calling for it to be shut down. And they have quite a different approach to things. So in many ways, I see the left and conservatives as actually quite similar, but they just have different things that they want to achieve. Like many people say conservatives are just progressives from 5 years ago, right? Like a lot of the things, especially if you look at the modern Liberal Party, a lot of the things, especially at the federal level, things like net zero and this sort of thing, they're things that the progressive left were pursuing years ago, and they've just sort of, hit the brakes on it a bit. That's what conservatives do, hit the brakes on it a bit, or tried to hit the brakes on it a bit. But ultimately, they're sort of just old progressive policies in many ways. So they're quite different. Whereas libertarians will say, well, we don't think the state should be involved in this. We think the state should be, we want to take a chainsaw to the state, right? Like we're pretty radical in that regard. We think that we should be, we question the very nature of the state involvement in particular things. So I think that we're quite different.
Yeah, I think so. And so my estimation would be, in the 60s, it was the left screaming for free speech, right? Because they didn't have the political power. Now it's the right, but whoever's got the political power is happy to influence people's speech. Yeah, no, I quite like that analogy. It's
it's interesting with free speech, isn't it? Yeah, because it did used to be the left once upon a time. Like I started out before I got involved in libertarian ideas. I was actually, I would have been classified as a lefty myself, right? And I was always a supporter of free speech, even back then. And so I sort of look at the modern left and I just don't understand it at all. Like, it just seems
there's been a huge shift, and it's almost like we've seen this huge, like from my point of view, is that we've seen this huge big shift to extremism and activism, and a lot of it, I think, is to do with like leading up to socialism and communism. Like, I think that's just where we're heading.
Especially in Victoria. we have like, explicit socialist party, right? A Victorian Socialist Party. I think that one of the reasons though that I think that the Conservatives have failed in many ways in pushing back against it is because the left, especially like this hardline left, they're very they have principles, right? They actually have principles. If you study them closely and see how they operate, they're very ideologically driven. They have principles and they stick to them.
They know what they stand for.
Does that, and that's what I think. That's what I think is different with the Libertarian Party, in that we stick to those things really tightly, because I don't think that you're going to be able to fight an ideological left if you don't have any sort of ideological framework that you're sticking to, I think you're in trouble, because they're just going to undermine you easily. And so we think that that is a way of countering them, is by sticking to a framework strictly the same way that they do, but in a different way. Yeah, but like the major parties don't do that at all. They're all over the place. Like
yeah. Well, like
even Labor's all over the place. Like people say, oh, Labor's really left and stuff, but actually Labor's pretty diverse in like their views on things. And I think a good example of that would have been the duck hunting stuff. Like, there was lots of people supporting the continuation of duck hunting that opposed prohibition. And then many people who'd been campaigning to keep duck hunting going were quite surprised when all of a sudden all these unions started coming out and supporting it. And like it was lots of people were a bit shocked. But I mean, I think that shows, there's a pretty big diversity within the Labor Party on this sort of thing. It's not homogenous at all.
I think they're too diverse, though.
Well, maybe. They're a very, very large organisation, like terrifyingly large.
Yeah, so the Liberals used to have they used to go by what Menzies believed in. Like they always went back on that. They've lost that. They're all just falling apart federally and state. It's a mess.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're just focusing. I mean, I'm not focusing on other parties. I'm focusing on us and what we can do. And, we're trying to build a movement by reaching out to as many different groups as possible. By, we've got really good branch structures now. We've got a fantastic policy team that's working on stuff. We've got our own activists who, go out and campaign on different issues and work on different issues with different groups. And we've got, unique positions on a lot of these areas that make us stand out. So I think it's, that's what I'm focused on. I'm not here to smack the Labor Party. I'm not here to smack the Greens. I'm not here to smack the Liberal Party. I'm here to grow the Libertarian movement, because I think that is a way to help Victoria and help Australia.
Yeah, and good on you. And that's where we appreciate you jumping on board with the ARU and helping us out with with recreational situation and keeping those things spoken about and on the forefront of that. So yeah, thank you for being behind us.
No worries.
All right. Well, we are well and truly over time, which is great.
Yes.
That just makes a good conversation. David, where can people follow you and the Libertarians, I suppose, and get involved if they want to? I encourage people to get involved. I've had good fun in the party. I'm not heavily involved anymore, but well, I sort of am, but on the fringes now. So. So how can people get involved and help out and get more Libertarians into our parliaments?
Yeah, look, I mean, the first step is in politics. The first rule of politics is you've got to show up. Mucking around on social media and complaining to people doesn't achieve anything. Actually, what achieves things is showing up. So, like, if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on. I'm on. Just do a search for David Limbrick on X, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, you can search for our party there as well, and you can reach out to me easily. I've through my email, david.limbrick@parliament.vic.gov.au, and I'm happy to let people know if they want to reach out to me how you can get involved in these things. We've got local branches all over the state. People can turn up to and just say hi and come along. But we also have many events and things like that. But you can sign up for our mailing list and you'll get information on when things are happening. But of course, we're organising for next year, and the more people that want to get involved and help with that, the better.
Yeah, and many hands make light work, and I can tell you, if you want to get involved, you can do a lot of work in the Libertarian Party. They'll have you working day and days a week. So, but
we've got a lot of passionate people who believe in what we're doing, and I feel really privileged to be a part of that. And I feel like it's a big responsibility, as I'm a public face, or I'm the only elected member in state parliament for the Libertarian Party. So I've got a big responsibility to do whatever I can to grow our movement and tell people about our ideas, and that's what this is all about.
Well,
you're doing a great job
in the outdoor space, and for the farmers. I think you're really demonstrating that you go beyond just your electorate. You care about these issues on a principle basis, and that's what people want to see. So you're doing a great job, mate.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time, David.
No worries. And
Guys,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. It was a
Tim's
pleasure.
got to say his thing.
Yeah, I've got to do my thing that I used to always forget. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it around. I will encourage you guys again, at least look into the party, jump on the website, and
I'll put
if
the
you're not
link in the
libertarian,
description.
find someone else. That's fine, but yeah.
Links in the description of the video, guys. Check out Libertarian Party, get involved, and all those things.
And give us a thumbs up for David.